Tori?
Yeah.
Oh, it came from, I apparently named myself, at least that's the legend. I was Victoria, and I couldn't say the name fully, so I called myself Tori. The title of this the show for me is Knots. That's pretty self-evident when you look at the paintings. They came about, the idea of knots came to me as a subject for the paintings when I was doing cat's cradle with one of my grandchildren, and the string dropped to the floor, and it dropped in a pattern that was very much was very lovely, was very beautiful, and I said, aha, that is something I'd like to investigate. I looked it up. I looked knots up on Wikipedia. Immediately found myself going to something called knot theory, which is a mathematical or a branch of mathematics. But the knot theory, which I didn't understand at all, but I must say they had some beautiful illustrations of the knots. And the point about these mathematical knots is that they are they're really all basically circles, and they don't have any ends. It's not like a nautical knot where you have ends, or a shoelace knot or things like that. These are you can untwist any of these knots if you had them in in a tube, let's say, a twisted tube, and they all eventually would come back to being a circle. Because I've always used circles, love circles, I love curvilinear shapes, and I began doing them quite straightforwardly. I think this was probably one of the first efforts, and eventually it began. Next one, this was actually over another painting, and you could see vestiges of the older painting in there. I wanted to create a space and a place where all of these entities, these units, existed together and were sort of all floating in the same universe. I was very pleased when somebody said, oh, you have made these spaces and places that I really want to go into. I just want to really be in there. I started about 3 or 4 at a time, and there's no actual chronological sequence anymore to what was completed first or whatever. But I began to play with the idea of transparencies and opaqueness more, and the paintings started to get a little more complicated. What I wanted to what I felt myself wanting to do as I was continuing with the painting was to get bigger. I wanted to get much more of a physical, be able to be much more physical with in painting them. And so one way I did this was to simply make larger paintings, and I loved it. And then I could vary the size of the knots more.
These are oil?
No, they aren't. That was another thing. I normally had been doing monotypes for a long time, and wanted to get back to painting. And I realized if I were going to do that, I would have to use acrylics instead of oil paints, as I normally had. And I was in a residency for a month and took only acrylics, and this was back in March of '07, and started using acrylics. And the reason I have to use acrylics is that my studio is in our loft, and I was making too many petroleum odors, so that it really wasn't a good idea for anybody. So,
What about this other painting?
Floating. I love that. I love this one. Obviously, all along I've started to use to fill in, as it were, some of the spaces that are created by the lines, making the forms quite apparent. And I liked the transparent white. It was a zinc white mixed with a little bit of titanium buff, I think. When I was making titles for these paintings, several of them came out with allusions to either times of day or planetary. This one is called Planetary. This one is, what was this? Twilight, I think. Yes, Knott's Twilight. I knew I wanted to do a sort of blue and yellow painting, and so Twilight was just in my mind. I mean, it's not of Twilight, obviously, but still, it is like the stars are the knots, and they're floating in the sky, and there's the change of color, and so forth. So this one is called Planetary. I think it. Who knows? I remember suddenly deciding to put in the dark rectangle there and leaving the little planets, so-called, there.
The planets used to be tied up in knots.
Okay. If you say so. Yeah, okay.
I see some knots in there.
Oh yeah, oh yes, right, you're right, absolutely, up here, yes. And I get a real kick out of the fact that I've used this little square down there. It's kind of out of keeping, but I think it's just exactly the right thing. I don't know if you can see it with the light that it's in, but it uses a lot of the surface texture. In fact, it is the outline of knots, but they're not visible to in the way that the drawn ones are, or the painted ones are. This painting I titled Knots Contained in Blue. I don't title works or go into a painting with a title in mind, or even with a resulting image in mind. This one was the last one I did, and it's more congested in some ways than the others. I still like the containment. Now it's a square, which I hadn't worked with before. It's also the knots are also contained within the larger knot. I mean, I think, is this the only one? Yes, this is really the only painting in which I've really done one knot that almost fills the painting. Of course, some of the other ones are floating out from the inside. Some of them are pushed back. But again, it's just another way of dealing with these things.
Now this is on wood?
On a panel, yes. I've never done that before either. And I don't think I'll do it again because I like the give of a canvas, the very slight give of a canvas. But wow, this one's busy. It's got a lot going on in there, and yet at one point it goes into a calm, unfilled area. Yeah, except with the little pentimento, what do you call those things, of another knot down there. And I call this one Sunset. And
because
I think because of the dark blue, and then the orange, and then the sort of glow that you get around a sunset.
Like a seascape there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tori, you did it.
I did it. Yes. Want to keep on doing them too. So we'll see.